Oh, hi there, everybody. Didn't see you there. Welcome back to the Lost Media Archives. It's a bit late to be here, isn't it? Well, it's a bit late for me to be here, too, isn't it? Too. Well, since you're here, I'll tell you all about Dracula Hunter. Dracula Hunter is a 1979 arcade game developed by the Japanese game company Tenkon Kog Yo, and and the game was extremely successful upon its initial release in Japan, and it was actually released in the United States too. But it failed to gain any sort of commercial success in the United States of America. It was extremely popular in Japan. It was popular enough to the point where it was referenced in a Japanese manga known as Game Center R Keishi, which was a manga that ran from 1978 to 1984, and is referenced in this. Now, after that was only ever popular in Japan, never actually finding any success over in the United States, and to this day it is considered lost completely. The whole game was lost, despite the fact that it was extremely popular during its time. The game was lost as is inaccessible to the general public. Okay. Now we see that photographs of the actual ROM for the game, alongside parts for the arcade cabinet, have surfaced over the years from a auction, eh, from a, from a Japanese auction that took place a few years back, which showed off photographs of the ROM itself and parts of the arcade machine. In 2012, video footage of the game in action surfaced, with it being recorded gameplay from the actual hardware itself. In 2018, more gameplay of it surfaced online, with it either being from a homebrewed ROM game or from or from a customized version of the arcade game emulator MAME. And on May 1st, 2018, a Japanese Yahoo auction took place for a complete arcade cabinet of the game, but we don't know if it actually ever sold, or if it did sell, who bought it in the first place. But the chances of it being found are very likely, as we know some multiple people do have their hands on the arcade game. It's just that they haven't released it to the public. Similar to the some similar to a few other situations where people have the media, but they just don't want to release it at all, such as there's actually a few other cases in the arcade and video games medium, where people just don't want to release it even though they have the actual copy of it. But in this case, we do know that a few people out there in this world own copies of the Dracula Hunter, but just don't release it. Now, what's the game about? Well, in the game, your task is killing off various vampires that are coming towards a sleeping princess, and you have to keep the princess safe from the vampire trying to suck her blood, and so you have to kill the vampires to make their way towards her while she's asleep. That's the whole game, really. It's similar to a shooter in a way, where you have enemies coming down, and you gotta stop them from getting to the bottom, and you have to stop them. But unlike regular shooters, you can actually move up and down the screen and move side to side. Most games at the time, such as Galaga and Space Invaders, only allows you to move side to side. But with this game, you go up and around and go all around the area to better hunt down the vampires as they try to make their way toward the princess, who you have to protect. Now we have also photographs of the flyer sent out for the game and the manual for the arcade game, which would have been for the arcade owners, so they can know how to operate and run the machine properly. And of course, we have screenshots too and video footage of it in gameplay. But hopefully somebody will finally decide to release it eventually one day, as what seems to be keeping it from being ever released is people hoarding it, as there are many cases in lost media where people just decided to hoard something and keep the general public away from ever getting their hands on it. So this is something I have very high hopes for being found eventually, someday, one day, I guess, really. And the game, of course, did very well over in Japan, but barely did well over here. Now, many people theorize the reason why, because of the controversy surrounding Death Auto Race, a game where you have to run over gremlins, but many people still get for you running over humans. It has caused a large amount of controversy surrounding the game, and so a game that is very similar and esque, where you have to kill human-looking creatures. Even though they're technically vampires, they're killing not actual humans. It could have possibly got swallowed up into the storm of the crate of the country surrounding Death Auto Race, and many arcaders may not want to own the game or buy it at all due to its similar nature to Death Auto Race. It was very controversial at the time, but it was just a theory. But anyways, folks, that's all I gotta say for today. So, bye, have a nice time, and go home.